Hello, everyone. My name is Desmond Eboy-Kunwe. I'm a media personality based in Lagos, and I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation organized by the Stand to End Rape initiative. And we're talking about asking questions about the tech divide for girls. And the theme for this conversation is advancing gender equality and women empowerment through tech. So we are asking, digital revolution, not without girls. So it's important to introduce our guests today, my guests today. We'll be having a short conversation, but truly important. Olivier King Sibo, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, Sophina Keo Lawson, also joining us as well. Sophina Keo Lawson is a cybersecurity professional and technology enthusiast who currently works as a DevOps investigator at Facebook. She's also one of the co-founders for She Secures, a growing initiative that inspires and empowers young African women to pursue careers in tech and cybersecurity, whilst providing digital security literacy to individuals and organizations globally. Fantastic. Olivier is an entrepreneur and a community development advocate from Burundi with an engagement experience in human rights advocacy, community organizing, and youth empowerment across East and Central Africa. They are the co-founder and member of the African Queer Youth Initiative, a Pan-African network of young activists aiming to equip and support other African youth with tools and resources to advocate for their rights. So this is truly a well-rounded panel, and I'm really excited to be having this conversation with the both of you for the next 50 minutes. So the very first question I'd like to ask is, I'd like to get an idea of your view on, as it regards issues of gender-based violence and the gap. So first, your view on the issues of gender-based violence, especially as it affects women in Africa. Let's start with Sophina.
Okay, fine. My view. I think I always dread talking about this topic because it feels very sort of anger, and at the same time, I'm always scared because it's taking a different toll. So unlike the fact that when you think about gender-based violence and you're thinking of offline violence with maybe spouses or partners or people from parents and every other thing, and now it's moving on to online, like you're thinking about cyber stalking, you're thinking about cyberbullying, and not just for women, especially mostly women of color, or you think of Black women, you think of women within the LGBT community and other marginalized groups as well. So it feels very sort of like this worry and constant fear, because now it's sometimes feel like it's beyond our control, where you're seeing images of women being posted without their consent, or you're seeing people being stalked, or you're seeing partners being using spyware, for instance, to stalk their partners because maybe that they refuse to give them something they've asked for, or very ridiculous things, or even using GPS to track their locations. So it's it's escalating into things that if not handled properly, might get beyond our control. So we're seeing increase in terms of abuses. So we're seeing increases in terms of victims, especially from Africa and very other underrepresented regions as well. So I don't know. For me, how do we come in? And I think this is part of why we're having this conversation with what do we see ourselves doing? How can we contribute as solutionists or as people who are already in the tech field? What can we do to make this not a conversation only, but more into an action plan, and transferring those sort of awareness into other regions, people who might not have access to YouTube to get this video, for instance. How do we make these conversations into the grassroots areas and get people to be more aware of what they can do when these things occur? And yeah, so for me, it's just one of those scary things. I also remember when I saw a video, I think it happened last month, I saw a video of a lady who was this close to getting assaulted or even killed. Within 10 seconds, she would have had that kind of incident where she was trying to I think she was coming home from work or something, and then in like 10 seconds, she saw a stalker, and within 10 seconds, she had to lock her door. If she hadn't locked her door within that very brief moment, who knows, that there would have been a casualty. She should have been dead or should have been assaulted. We don't know what would have happened. Or it did like create some sort of triggers for me, because I remember when I was house hunting as well, and there was this very like dark hallway. It wasn't dark per se, but there was a hallway. And I was like, whilst I know I wasn't going to get that apartment because I was not going to be using coming back home and try to fear for my life every single time. But having to pass through that hallway and thinking that, oh, there are no cameras inside, there is nobody around. What happens to me if I'm coming back from a grocery shop or something, or getting something from a store and I'm coming back from work late or whatever, and that stalker who happened to be in that viral video that we saw on Instagram could have also come after me, and nobody would know of what happened to me at that night. So it's crazy on how we have to like do several things to protect ourselves and at the same time have these conversations like flowing around, irrespective of what areas it could be offline gender-based violence, could be online gender-based violence. But the fact is that we're talking about it and we're thinking of ways in which we could like fix the gaps. And in terms of the gaps of women in this tech space, it's not just about having a conversation about placing women in place that they can actually build solutions that can protect women. So not just as we users as well, or people who are going to use the solutions, or people who are going to be creating them. If you think about software developers, you think about data analysts or data researchers who would know, oh, this is happening in certain regions. How do we now use those data to like create a solution that would help everybody or impact everybody? So yeah, I'm just like very excited about this conversation. I'm seeing where it takes us and what we can do about it. But it's, for me, it's always scary. Yeah.
Which is why it's important to have this conversation on today, the 11th of October, which is the World International Day of the Girl, International Day of the Girl Child. So it's really important. So I'll just throw the question to you, Olivier King-Sibo. What are your thoughts on this? She spoke heavily on inclusion for women to build even facilities and tech, what's the word now? To build structures, infrastructure in the tech space. So what are your thoughts on that? The gender violence, conversations on gender violence in Nigeria and Africa.
Thank you, Desmond. For me, if I take a step back, one of the things I have to point out is that I'm from that one generation that not really grew up with technology, but was there before social media take over, which means there's a lot of bias, there's a lot of ideas that were there about technology that were not involving, were not inclusive to women, were not considering women. And with technology taking over, these bias came to be reinforced to a certain extent, and creating gaps, creating stereotypes where women are still denied access to these technologies and full participation to the use of technology for solving situations and problems that are related to the aspect of being a woman in Africa. And things like gender-based violence and other different gaps most of the time are still pointed out by contexts where women are not actually are not still allowed to share what are their stories, are not allowed to be participative and actually come up with solutions that are women inspired, and other contexts that are locally driven and that tends to respond to needs that are local. In the participation of women in tech is something that is needed, and there's a gap that is there because for a long time, even out of tech, women are still denied the access to certain spaces, and this is a point in time where we have to remind everyone where we have to to join our sisters, where we have to collaborate with our sisters and actually help them to bring out the type of solutions that are that can respond to the type of realities they are living in.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Olivier. So just picking back off to what Olivier said. Safina, you work in the tech space at Facebook. So just to put into context, because the first, we see a lot of conversation from people saying, oh, that's not true. Where are the numbers? Where do you get your data from? From your own experience, do you see this gap happen, even your experience as a tech girl in Nigeria?
Yeah, so I was saying, like, yeah, I still see the gap, even if we have like a lot of what they call it, internet or mobile users and everything. Like, you can see like there's a rise in that. I still feel like there is still like a lot of gap between the people who are still not like digital aware, or like they don't really know how to still, like, in terms of digital literacy, you can still see that the numbers are still like very low. So whereas we're having like solutions and being like, oh yeah, if you're being like harassed or you're being abused online, you can like report it. A lot of those solutions are usually sometimes available on mostly smartphones, and people who are like not on smartphones, who don't have access to like the internet or anything. How did you like report them? The only thing that you can now do is like report it to like toll-free numbers and those things. Sometimes they might not have airtime to actually do that. So for me, I'd say that while these gaps are existing, it's like we can still see organizations that are collaborating with these other tech providers to make sure that there is still like a sort of bridge between those two worlds, where like even the people who don't have internet access and those who don't have internet, by creating, let's say, a centers where they have like you can use internet for free, or like the internet what do you call it, internet projects that you have back in like Lagos, where you have hotspots and these things around like globally, like trying to help people to bridge those sort of gaps. You also have the places of where like these platforms are making them like easier for you to report cases that have been up. Like, let's assume that you were harassed online, for instance. They're creating like more awareness, like know that, okay, this is how you go about reporting those sort of abuses that happen. You can report the account, or you can like take a screenshot and you can flag it off, or like ways that you can go about reporting those sort of things then. And then as well, in terms of like the gaps of people, like in terms of like the gaps for people who are not like very tech savvy and everything, I think it still falls down to being like more like training and awareness, and having like collaborating with the government and other initiatives that already existed to like create more ICT programs that could be there to like help increase the number of women who are represented in such fields. Because growing up, I know I didn't used to have like, I guess I was privileged to maybe have like a mobile phone or something, but it wasn't until like very far into like certain age when I could like get my own mobile phone. Else I had to like rely on my uncle or let's say a parent to like use their own mobile devices, or I had to like get permissions to use it. So we can still see the sort of thing, even if it's not like very common these days, because you can see kids who are like 9-10-year-olds having like very, very good smartphones. But at the same time, if you go to other very like urban areas and you find that people are like still not even having access to it, not even a tiny little phone, you don't have access to that. So making those sort of things very accessible. We could have like programs that give people spare phones, or give people like devices that were not used anymore, refurbish things like that, and make it very easy accessible. So women who encounter issues like regarding to like gender-based violence, for instance, will have ways to report them, even if they are not like privileged to like get this access to technology at this particular time, whilst we still have all the trainings and how we have the awareness going on, but we're finding a way to like bridge those sort of gaps and make it like closer, kind of. Yeah,
I hear you. And the next question I was going to ask, you already started answering most of them, which is going to speak to what organizations and bodies can do to get involved to stop the spike in, to ensure women are safe online rather. So I'm just going to ask the question again, so that you just put it into context for what organizations can do specifically. So now I've heard you speak to access to tech for people in various communities, whether being urban, creating centers for people to access internet infrastructure. So I'm just thinking, how can the organization part, people in organizations, how can bodies get involved with this to stop the spiking numbers of domestic gender-based violence, rather?
Yeah, so I think what this reminds me of is like, I think sometime in July, there was this what's it called? What was it called? I think it's Generation Equality Forum that held in Paris, and then you had like this very notable prominent women who are in different sectors in advocacy, in tech, and every other thing, coming up to sign like an open letter to the CEOs of these major platforms and asking them to ensure that they sign to make this platform more secure for women. So that's like one little step. It's not like it's not very grand or anything. It's just very minute thing. But one thing that stood out for me was the fact that as when this solution or when these platforms are being built or whatever, there aren't enough women who are doing that, as in like there are not enough women who are building these solutions as engineers and all those, like what I already mentioned earlier. There are not enough engineers, there are not enough data scientists and all that. So we have to put women in the power, that give them the power and control to be able to create things that are supposed to be used for women, because you can't be out making women, like you can't say you want to protect women, but you're not giving them the environment, or you're not giving them the positions to actually make those decisions that will actually protect the women that they should be protected from on those platforms. So you're seeing people posting like things that go about like cyberbullying and all that, but then women aren't asking, they're not asking the questions to women directly that have been affected or been impacted. Whereas they should be asking those questions, they should be directing the questions to them and saying that, oh yeah, this is what we should do, because we are the ones who get impacted by this. We're the ones who know what has happened to us. We're the ones who face the threats online and offline. So the first thing I think also is that they should also like give people the way to like they can manage their safety. So for instance, organizations could have like ways to tell women that, okay, if what is the best way for us to like interact? Do you want to interact on this platform? So you're having, let's say, Twitter, or you're having TikTok, for instance, and people complain that they are being bullied on those sort of platforms. They should give the power to the women. It's like, okay, these are the reports that we've had over the past couple of years. How can we make it better? Or how can we improve the choices that you make in terms of maybe who follows you, or who reacts to your stories, or who is able to send you a DM, or certain controls and tools should actually be in place. And I think already some platforms already said taking those sort of notions. And policies, we cannot even roll out policies. So when you have like these issues of being like reporting cases and all that, but the right policies definitely will help you like know that, okay, this is how we should moderate certain contents that come out and being flagged as very abusive, or being like hate speech, or things that are being tagged as violence in nature. These are already existing, but at the same time, we have to know that people who are handling this content moderation, for instance, are humans. So you also want to have like a whole holistic approach for them, because sometimes they burn out, and when somebody is burnt out and everything, you know that they wouldn't want to, they would see some things online and they'll be like, oh, well, I'm so tired to like flag this thing as abusive or anything. Let me just move on to the next page or next post or whatever. But having to have like strike a balance between the holistic approach and having like a technical approach as well. And yeah, I think just having a whole like centering the power on women, the women who are being affected, let women be the ones who drive the strategies and the initiatives, and putting them in those sort of positions to build the products and the platforms and things that would help like reduce the rate at which this abuse is happening online and offline would definitely help. And yeah, I think that's what organizations are already doing. And it's just for us to like call them out when we see that they're, or follow up on them consistently. Organizations are doing that, the organizations I work for are doing it. So we're just going to have to like keep on reaffirming and calling it out when it's not being done or it's not being done properly. And hopefully ensure that more diversity as well in those places are being taken seriously. Yeah, really.
I feel we should just continue with the conversation. It's still the International Day of the Girl Child conversations brought to you by the Stand to End Rape Initiative. And it's truly instructive for us to have this conversation. We're joined by Safina Kyo-Lawson and Olivier King-Sibo on here this afternoon for this virtual conversation. And I have a board, but nobody sees it. Advancing gender equality and women empowerment through tech. That's what's on the board. But we'll just go right back into the conversation. So thank you so much, Safina, for your line of thoughts for answering that question. So I'll just go straight to Sibo. So Sibo, Are there new innovations in the tech space to advance what Sofina has been highlighting to ensure that there's safety for women online?
The tech world is a world that keep evolving. There are so many input that are being done from all over the world, and most of them are trying to work for the good of humanity. And with gender equality and women empowerment, there have been a lot of small actions that are being implemented and are helping women to actually navigate both the online and the physical world safely. There are now applications that are helping women to know where are zones of harassment where you should avoid to pass during certain hours. And there's also what we call virtual safe space, which are spaces where women can meet, can learn, and share their experience regarding the online world, and where they can still catch up with stories and other storytelling actions that can help to keep going the education around technology. And the other aspect is technology as peer, and where some women engage in online actions to let's say to offer a hand to other women who have less skills or are not that experienced with technology, and these women support other women to do some basic actions, things like doing a backup or reinforcing the security of your computer. And I think all of these are nice actions that are being implemented all over the world, and that can help to inspire more on an African level and be inclusive to more women as possible.
So I hear these solutions that you mentioned, that you talked about. Well, I would like to ask Sofina, are you impressed with how much, where we are at? And we are having this conversation because we already recognize that there's these as a problem. So are you impressed with these solutions? And in your own, in the African context, what do you think about these divide?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm impressed, because if me saying I'm impressed means that there's no room for like improvement, or we're okay where we are. So because there's really much work to be done. And when you think about most of the solutions that are even available, a lot of them are not available when it comes to Nigeria, first of all. Like, I'm speaking from, because I'm Nigeria, I speak about Nigeria first. Some of the I think I've seen a couple of solutions in Uganda, maybe in South Africa, where they have like street safe, or in other like very cool projects where like women are able to like look after each other and be each other's like support system, and you can like cater to each other person. But they're very, very few when it comes to like Nigeria, and the tools are already available. So we can definitely do much better. But has there been improvements? Yeah, I think there has. There's been like in terms of more awareness, I believe. So people like know what to do. Let's say if you're going out, or if you're in a place where you don't feel safe, for instance, and what to do. Like WhatsApp, for instance, has a WhatsApp live location where you can like leave your live location turned on. You have like different what's it called, Find My Friend on iPhone, and like other devices. People are just using like what is already existing to like help protect themselves and help like cater to their to their friends and to their loved ones or partners. So I think that's like a good like like good step, but I wouldn't say like I'm okay with everything that's like the whole ratio of what's already happening. We have like, I think we have like a large percentage of our internet users, but then almost like in Africa, almost like 600 million or so. I don't even know, but yeah, I think around this rate. But then you would think that the fact that we have that high internet or whatever usages and everything, our internet connectivity, that would also create like, oh, there would be more solutions that are being created to like actually match the gap of the people who are actually using this sort of solution, using this sort of product, but it's not. There are people who are relying on the internet and relying on them to like protect themselves, relying enough of businesses, relying on them. We've had Twitter ban in Nigeria. Just imagine the places where people even feel like they can actually report things and get like real life help, for instance. But yeah, you have the government that is like trying to put what they call it, trying to frustrate the efforts of certain people, because now people have to feel like restricted. You have to get like a VPN, you have to get this to bypass certain networks to actually get help online from other people who want to help you. So it's I think it's when you think that you're making like very like 5 steps forward, you have this government and you have other certain restrictions trying to pull you back. You have people who are trying to discourage investors from coming to the country to even like set up all of these spaces that are supposed to be existing. They're like very different things. So I don't think that I'm okay. I feel like I'm very, I don't think so. The gender divide is quite big, even in terms of, even when we have like, when you think about even the fiscal space alone, where it's like men doing like very like the male folks doing very great in like certain what do you call it, certain careers and certain fields, and then you now think about the digital divide itself, where it's like we don't even have access to these sort of tools. I have like some, because I run like a community for women who are in tech, so that you have people who are like, they're trying to get access to resources so that they can upskill themselves to get certain careers that they want, but then they're not finding the sort of resources available. They're having problems with internet, they're having problems with security, the laptops to even learn the programming skills or the skills that they need to get the job that they want. They're having issues with getting the right mentors, because maybe that the mentors are far away, or timing issues, or by the time the mentor is even available, there's no lights at home, you have the power, electricity and power issues. So like there are tons of things that like holding the, like constantly increasing the gap. So when you think that you're making this sort of huge strides, it then comes to feel like, oh God, we're never making so much effort, we're not making so much like improvements at all. But is there hope? I know, I do think that there's definitely hope for us, like gets to that point where we're like, okay, we're no more like very underrepresented, or like we're not that kind of community anymore. We're actually making big strides and effort because of people who are getting access to it and the kind of solutions that they're bringing, with those who are already privileged enough to actually have access to this sort of technology. So yeah, for me, I'd say like we should just keep on like still like keep on creating this sort of awareness campaigns that we're doing, create like more digital solutions. If we have funding, fund more women-led initiatives so that women can actually like, because a lot of time they might not feel comfortable going to spaces that are already like very choked already with the male folks, and they want to go to places where they know that their voices will be heard, or where they know that their solutions or their ideas will definitely come out and they can do things to help their communities. So yeah, making all those sort of things very accessible, making it very affordable as well. And yeah, investing more internet users, invest in maybe cheaper phones or cheaper mobile technologies for those people who cannot afford them. And hopefully we'll get the gap, or we see like lesser gap.
I can almost, when you spoke about Uganda, you spoke about some other African countries and the solutions available in those places. And when it got to the Nigerian context, which is where the both of us, we are residents, I could sense like a form of frustration, which is what a lot of people in the tech space feel. And that has further, everybody in the tech space feels like when they're building a solution, that solution is frustrated. So what can we do as people to fix that? Because that every single day, that divide for tech internet users and people who have access to tech grows. So how can we fix that gap while still recognizing that in the Nigerian context, there would always be external factors or factors that would always show up to either bring down the solution or just frustrate the process?
Yeah, I think sometimes because a lot of times a lot of these people will like invest in like businesses and things. So when they find out that it's not like you're not trying to generate revenue from it, so you're only focusing on, let's say, your social problem, or you're only focusing on dealing with things that affect, let's say, your community. So you might not get like enough people to invest in it, or get enough people to want to support those sort of like projects. So I think people just should just like think about always the bigger picture. Like it's more or less more, definitely should be more impact first before like what do you call it, revenue and every other thing that comes first. Like, but I think a lot of the solutions already exist in other countries because they're thinking more about the safety of the people rather than thinking about, oh, how do we generate revenue? How do we get like 5 million people to like run ads on a particular project and all those sort of things? But if you think about how much you're going to be saving, first of all, then think about the money. Of course, money is important, but think about how many lives we saved first, and then think about how the solutions are going to like impact the community that you have and people, especially when it comes to gender-based violence, for instance. Now, if we have a solution where you're able to like be, let's say, if I'm going home after work at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. or something, and I have, let me say, I'm music partner, for instance, and I don't feel safe. If I have an app that's like, oh, okay, somebody's going to like work with you and try to like be there. If you feel like you're feeling threatened or anything, you can always buzz that person's number, or just the sort of ideas that can spark. But then another person is like, oh, how do you make money from it? Or how do you do this? And the person feels like, oh, the ideas are not that great. So maybe I should just sit back and look for ideas that will generate more income for me than thinking about. So not just thinking about money, but I think like having to like think about the greater impacts, where it's like more impacts in the society, impacting more communities than just generating wealth for your 10,000 generations to come. I think that's one thing. And also not being like frustrated. Yes, the government might want to frustrate you, but we will not deny that they're still very existing. Like there are very good ideas that have come out from Nigeria. We have lots of ways. We have like very other amazing ideas that are coming out from the tech ecosystem. So amidst all the frustrations and the stumbling blocks and all the things that try to like bring you down and everything, you would definitely you still definitely succeed, and you just got to keep pushing really and think about the impact, and you'll be fine. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Safina. Well said. My name is, by the way, my name again is Desmond Ebwekunwe, and it's my honor and privilege to be hosting this virtual roundtable for the Stand to End Rape Initiative. The Stand to End Rape Initiative is a youth-led social justice organization advocating against all forms of sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria. STAIR offers psychological support, medical and legal aid to survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. STAIR also uses homegrown sustainable solutions and best practice to push for policy reforms and create awareness on social behavioral change. And today on this roundtable, questioning and access to tech, and also just speak about advancing gender equality and women empowerment through tech, and asking the question, digital revolution, and also using the hashtag not without girls. I'm joined by Safina Kyo Lawson and Olivier King Sibo. So I feel like I'll just go straight to the next question. Well said, Safina. So is inclusion really enough? Just asking, staying with you, Safina, again, is inclusion really enough? Does just having more significant number of women in the tech system result in the future we want? So we are now focusing on a future where there are more women who have access to tech, where, let's say, organizations are now more involved. And so is inclusion really enough, to be honest, answering that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like everybody's talking about diversity and inclusion. I think in every company right now in 2021, I think a lot of their goals are like, oh, we want to have more diverse employees, we want to have more days, we want to have more inclusive what do you call it, staff within our organization. But yeah, I think it's definitely going to like drastically help make things better. If we have, I'm actually of the opinion that if we have more women both in leadership positions and in places of that has to like make impacts in either in the tech space and every other place, we'll definitely have more results oriented solutions and things that are just like there for aesthetic's sake. So yeah, building in terms of like having more women, drastically, it's definitely going to help like increase the increase the number of solutions we have, that more effective solutions that we have. So it's different, and we have like number of, when you look at all the CEOs of the top applications, the top platforms out there, they're all men. I'm not saying anything, but they're all men. They're no women in CEO right now. Twitter, Facebook, every other thing. But that's not even the case. But yeah, if you look at ourselves, let's think about 5 years or 10 years from now, and we see like more women being more represented, either as engineers, even as developers, as the people, the content strategists, the moderators, everything in terms of the policy making as well, in terms of leadership positions as well, because it's not just about making those platforms and everything, but people who are at the top, the governmental, the what they call it, from the legislators to even the presidency, every other party, being represented in all those places makes things easier, because it all comes back there, like this all circle where everything is connected together, because you might not be able to pass a particular project up if it's not being approved by certain policies or being approved by certain things. And when that is, if you have more women, they will know what solutions are better for the women that they're trying to protect. So apart from the fact that we have to have more significant numbers, it's not just having significant number, but having women who actually understand what they're doing. So it's not just me saying that, oh yeah, let's just have women heads or figureheads, or they're being represented in these positions, but they actually know what they're doing. Are they skilled enough to actually do it? And how do you achieve those kind of skills? It's more about equipping them with the right skills. Yes, literacy programs that we can start off with. In Nigeria, I think we have like tons of them. We have Tekha NG that is doing a lot of them. In Kenya, we have She Hacks Kenya, and a couple of other initiatives that are actually doing these things of like helping provide digital literacy or security literacy programs, and encourage women to actually start from there. We can also like start from like advocating for women in terms of getting access to use more technology and more social media, because not everybody knows how to use it. Even if I get harassed or bullied on, let's say, on some social platforms right now, so people might not even know how to go about reporting the accounts that has been bullying them, or this revenge porn, for instance, you go onto the website and you see people trying to like blackmail somebody for pictures that they have taken out of without their consent, and nobody knows the right laws in place for them to actually report these things to. So actually like advocating and creating the sort of awareness for people to have access to the right tools and resources that they should report these things whenever they happen is quite important. I also say that maybe also like highlighting like specific like techniques that can protect women identities wherever possible. So in this context, we're thinking about what can the government do to crack down like social media, the people who are like, let's say, helping to give people like importance, giving them some sort of relevance on social media, which provide like more training and help protect women instead of making them like an easier target. And lastly, I think just supporting women, fund a lot of women initiative programs, the women-led programs then that are actually doing solving problems in technology. So yeah, like tons of them, or tons of people who have so many great ideas, but then they don't have the sponsorship or they don't have the funds to actually execute their ideas. But if you have like a lot of these venture capital programs and everything already out there, that actually thinking of ways that, okay, how do we get women to actually like lead these programs? How do we train them to be better entrepreneurs or lead their own, lead their own businesses and get them into the like tech space and get them funded? Money is important. Money is everything really right now. With the money, you can make your ideas you can make your ideas as relevant as possible. All right, so yeah, fund a lot of women programs, fund and support them. And yeah, really, I think that's pretty much what I would say. Apart from, it's not just having the numbers of representation, but having people who are skilled and having the organizations to support, because you can't just do it alone. Women can't do it alone. We still need organization, we still need allies, we still need other groups that can support us together, and we have like a common vision, a common goal to get those numbers higher. And yeah, and eventually we'll all get the future we want, because really women are the future. Really, they are the future.
Women are the future, and it's International Day of the Girl Child. Truly important to highlight that. So just going to you, Sibo, asking the same question. So the question I asked was, which I forgot to ask as a part of my question to Safina, is what is the ideal future we want? So we are highlighting a lot of things that would make access, that will speak to access, that will bring about access and break that divide for women, safety online in the tech space. So, but for you, what does that future look like, if you can? And how important is the role of allies in ensuring that we break this divide?
Digitally educated women, more participation, and proactive involvement into shaping what the tech world is supposed to look like. Because most of the time, with the lack of access to technology for women, but also sometimes the deny context in which these women exist, and that doesn't allow them to actually understand better the tech world. These are setting a context where tech is still seen or is still a South Island that is a little bit mystic to certain women. And even though actions that are being done in other spaces that are calling themselves inclusive, they tend not to be that impactful, which means there's a need for more education and proactive actions that not only are going to be inclusive to these women, but also helping them to shape and to create the type of reality they want online. And I think Sofina has said a lot about entrepreneurship, about doing partnership, about access to education, to this digital education. All of these are doable, but they are not only doable because women decide to actually intervene, but this is something that has to be done by each person, which means men, people identifying as non-binaries, other women, everyone should be proactive into welcoming the participation, access and participation of women in tech spaces.
So just staying with you, because we have a few more minutes before we round this off. So how can technology break down existence, which is what you already started speaking about? How can we use technology to break down existing societal and power structures and create new ones?
Technology, for me, I see it as something like a parallel world to what people are living in the physical world, which means many of the things happening online are also things that are happening in real life, in what we call the physical world. So it's very important to use technology to educate women, to support education of women, to support self-expression, to support participation and collaboration and engagement of women in situations where these women can be supporting each other. But also technology has to be more open to anyone to know how they can implement actions that are welcoming everyone, including women, in the situation where there are contexts, there are power structures that have to be known, that have to be changed, but also sometimes that's help to actually be supported, and so they can also be more inclusive to these women.
Fantastic. So Sofina, same question. I'm starting with the same question, but I want you to speak to what are some of the substantive gains you would like to see for women. So with all these structures, we are creating new ones as regards power and existing societal structures. But what are some of the gains you'd like to see for women?
really, for me, I'm always thinking about security and safety because the world where I envision is where a woman isn't like scared to walk home at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. or even at 12 midnight because she's safe and she doesn't have to worry about being hurt on the streets. She doesn't have to be worried about being hurt at home. She doesn't have to be worried about being cyberbullied online as well. So like there are so many demands the woman is constantly fighting, if not at every single point in her life. So for me, it's like when it gets to all the spaces where like she doesn't have to worry anymore, she doesn't have to like be the only person who has to. If I'm stepping out of my house, I have to think about, oh, do I have my phone to call somebody? My phone fully charged? Do I have to? Should I have money if I get stranded? Do I have to? Who is my next contact? Do I have my live location turned on? I shouldn't be worrying about all these things because the world shouldn't be revolving around like having to deal with insecurity your whole life. So I think for me, it's like if all those things are like if we have a space where like it's constantly we are trying to like be jealous keeper, we're trying to like amplify women's voices, we're trying to ensure that women are really represented in those spaces where they're making solutions for people and it's actually very accessible, where the next girl child who is after me is seeing a role model because she's seeing that, oh, actually there's somebody else there who is in tech who is doing this and she can actually do that herself, or even in very leadership positions in the government space, in advocacy spaces. It's been like reciprocated around the globe, and you're like, you see those kind of familiar faces, and you're like, oh yeah, I can actually do that. So for me, it's like if we're seeing ourselves winning in those certain positions, and we're seeing ourselves in the creative spaces, in the art spaces, in the technology sector, you're winning in that on all those areas that you think about, where they say that you cannot do it, where they say you can't go into certain rooms and be those certain things, but you're seeing yourself doing it, being in those rooms, and you're taking ownership, you're taking space, you're owning that space, and you're being like yourself, you're being your authentic self. And really, for me, it's like just carrying those attitude yourself and translating it into the solutions that are being served to the world and making it the whole space like a bit more safer for every single person, making it more reliable, making it more, how would I put it? Just for me, the gain is women winning all around and being safe and secure throughout, not having to fear for their lives. Because I don't want to hear another death of another person. I don't want another, what's her name, the girl who died in the university, or somebody being killed in a church because she went to study because she's trying to upskill herself, but then she's being killed in a building, or she's being raped, or I don't want to hear this sort of news. I want everybody to like be not be conscious of anything, but be able to like have everybody should have each other's back really, and a world where, because even if you think about all these things, think about all the solutions, there are not enough solutions in this world that would how like eliminate the human elements of people being evil and being very shitty human beings. Sorry for the word, but yeah, it's not going to help that. So it's, for me, it's like we can only do our best. We can only like create all this sort of spaces, like very safe spaces and very safe environments or safe platforms, and create all those policies at the best that we can. But at the end of the day, we just have to like just keep doing it, and hopefully it's the goal we want is like every woman is out there doing her thing, being shining in her own corner or in her own space, and creating more room for the next young girl or young woman, non-binary anyone or non-binary person and everything to be represented in those spaces as well, and give them the support that they need whenever they ask for it. If it's been the whole mentorship, if it's through money and funding, you're giving it to them. If it's just holding their hands and guiding them, or just having your whole self being represented as a person, as a figure that you can look up to, let it be that. But we're just going to take it baby steps, one step at a time. And yeah.
Yeah, so we have like under 3 minutes. So I'm just going to give the both of you 1 minute to just answer the last question, my final question for today, which is on, I can speak to the Nigerian context because I am Nigerian and I've always been here. And which is, there's a lot of stereotypes. Like when you see people even in the tech space, you're like, oh, he's a tech bro, but nobody really speaks to the stereotype of, oh, only men are in these spaces. So how can we dismantle those gender stereotypes and biases as it regards tech? So we'll just start with Sibo and then move to Safina and we'll round it off. Thank you so much.
To dismantle gender stereotype, one of the things that is needed is education. and education around these stereotype, because most of the time people act or behave with actions that are not informed, and it's very important to reinforce the education and also the proactive participation against the stereotypes. So both for women and everyone online, it's very important to know what are the stereotypes and how harmful they can be. And these can only be done by education, sharing stories, and trying to put out there the context and help the people who are online to be proactive on this situation. And yeah, I think this is all. Education is very important, and proactive participation.
Yeah, I think same thing. I think I would agree with what Sibyl said as well. Education and awareness, not just to the people, to everybody, but like, especially if you're working in the tech space, like employees should always like know that you can't just assume that somebody is dumb or somebody is this because they are a woman or they identify as women. You just don't assume anything. Always ask and let there be numbers to show that, oh, this person is actually skilled for this particular role and they deserve a shot irrespective of their gender, irrespective of what they identify as. Another thing is that always make the room transparent. Let there be room for people to like share whatever they think is wrong. So if it has, you can have like an anonymous feedback from whatever that people employees could like just put together that, oh, this happened to me and I don't feel comfortable with this and all that. That creates like a whole sense of everybody's listening or somebody's there listening to your concerns and things that you're not really comfortable sharing with the public, but because you've created that whole opportunity and created a very safe space where people like, oh, bring forth their concerns and everything. People will feel like, oh, they're actually listening to me. And also, there shouldn't be any stereotype in terms of compensation as well, because people, you can still find a whole disparity in terms of payment between the male folks and the women, and see the large gap that is there. You can see somebody, a woman who is like very skilled, maybe 12 years of experience, and she's still struggling with her paycheck, and she's earning like way lesser than her male peers. But because the man seems that he's doing the proper thing, he looks like he's very confident, or he can exude a very, very large kind of thing that you might portray. But yeah, it's just feels like, oh yeah, you should be earning more without having to like go through the numbers and the statistics to see who is actually doing a better job than the other. So yeah, just whole creating like every whole transparent of room or safe spaces. Everybody should be heard, and having this whole check to not assume that anybody knows anything more than better than the other person, and just that whole balance. Like there should be a whole 50-50. If you don't know it, you don't know it, let the other person have a shot at it. At the same time, everybody deserves a shot, and nobody is inferior or superior than the other. But yeah, that's pretty much.
Everyone deserves a shot. That's a perfect place to end this. Thank you so much, Safina Lawson. Thank you so much, Olivier King-Sibo. And thank you to Stand to End Rape Initiative for bringing this together, making this happen. And this has been a virtual roundtable conversation to advance gender equality conversation and also speak on women empowerment through tech. So it's important to mention that Stand to End Rape has a mandate to end all forms of sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria. And we can be reached on all social media platforms at Stand to End Rape on Instagram, all social media platforms. And our hotline is 080-9596-7000. Again, 080-9596-7000. Thank you so much, Safina Lawson. Thank you so much, Olivia King-Sibo. And thank you to you who joined us for this conversation. Thank you for staying with us. My name is Desmond Eboy-Kungwe, and this has been a truly, truly, truly important conversation to have on this day, October 11th, the day set aside for which is the International Day for the Girl Child. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and do have an amazing, amazing day.